Hello, this is Stuart Perry from SecureWise. We're here this evening to talk about an overview of SecureWise. We're going to give people a few more minutes before we get started, so please stand by. Hello again, and for those of you who missed it, this is Stuart Perry from SecureWise. We're going to go ahead and review the SecureWise product this evening. We have opened a live event Q&A, so if you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to submit them, and I will address them after the presentation. So hope everyone is safe out there, and let's go ahead and get started. So our agenda this evening is to talk about the problems that SecureWise addresses, talk about secure remote connectivity technology, go over the architecture of the product, talk about the standard services that we offer, the enhanced services that we offer, and the value drivers as far as why the product has been so successful. So our global footprint for SecureWise is very impressive. And if you miss any of those numbers on the screen, the most important one to focus on is that 99% 300 millimeter fabs around the world. That means if you need connectivity to a fab, we can provide it. We're also 27001 certified. We have 5 hubs around the world. We're 15 years experience in providing remote connectivity. As you can imagine, we have incredible demand given the issues of today. But we've been here since 2002, and we're going to be here long into the future, providing the connectivity that you need. So we'll talk a little bit about the history. Before the e-diagnostics, they called it, or remote connectivity standards were in place. This is kind of what remote connectivity looked like. Each OEM connected to each fab, whether it was over a simple telephone line or even advanced TCP at that time, they did direct connections to the fabs, and the entire solution was basically unmanageable from a network point of view, security point of view, etc. It was complicated for both OEMs and the fabs to manage all those connections, and each connection represented a risk that must be mitigated. This is what the world looks like with SecureWise. So we provide a worldwide private network that we manage on your behalf. So instead of having your IT group manage and worry about potentially hundreds of connections to your customers, or on the fab side, connections from your suppliers, you have one connection from SecureWise. We manage all the complexity. We make sure that if OEM A is allowed to connect to FAB B, then that's the only connection allowed. Even though it is a common private infrastructure, SecureWise team makes sure that only authorized connections at a network level are allowed. This helps mitigate any unauthorized suppliers coming into the FAB. It supports multiple OEMs. If you have a large OEM that's distributed across different geographies, they all have their own connection into our infrastructure, and that helps maximize the performance of the system. All right, SecureWise itself is really the most secure way to remotely access and monitor equipment. And this is primarily because we have something called defense in depth, which basically says put as many walls, as many obstacles as you can between the bad actor and the business data. So in this case, we use IPsec in a worldwide private network. That's the same technology used by your office to secure satellite offices to make sure that they can communicate with each other effectively. So that prevents the entire network, the entire ecosystem, from actually being seen by anyone on the internet. So equipment owners and equipment builders remotely collaborate today to using this infrastructure to improve equipment performance at every stage of the process and life cycle, while protecting valuable intellectual property for all. So this represents what our private network looks like today. We have 5 hubs around the world and constantly expanding based on business need. And the way this generally works is each customer, whether a FAB or OEM, connects to the closest hub. This minimizes latency and provides the best performance for the customers. It runs on something called IPsec, which is, at this point, the most secure way over the internet to provide connectivity. As I mentioned earlier, it's a closed, unpublished system. All of the software that runs inside of this private network is not visible from the internet. And most of these hubs are also geo-redundant. So if we have a problem in a specific geography, it can fail over automatically to another hub without loss of connectivity. So now we'll drill down a little bit further. We talked a little bit about the private worldwide network. This diagram kind of breaks that down and shows you what the pieces look like. So on the far right, we have the OEM machine builders. They're all connected to this private network that we talked about before at the different hubs. And we now have the FAB on the left. So the FAB in the blue box represents kind of 2 security zones. One, we have the SecureWise server. This is a hardware software solution that's provided by the SecureWise team. Then this software and server acts as an isolation layer between the OEMs on the right and the tools that reside in the factory. By having this SecureWise server, it ensures that no OEM on the right has direct connectivity to the tools on the left. Everything in technical lingo is called port and protocol translation, which basically says that everything is inspected in that SecureWise server and translated from one protocol to another before it actually gets to the tool, thus ensuring that those tools remain isolated, remain away from the internet, and away from prying eyes. Now, while we do have this private IPsec hub and spoke infrastructure, it's important to note that inside of that network, we run HTTPS or TLS. And that's to ensure that traffic between the FAB and the OEM remains private, even from the SecureWise group. So that HTTPS is the same security protocol that's used when you connect to your bank to do your bank transactions. So it's very secure, but we actually run that very secure protocol inside of our private network to make sure that no one can see your data. Now, the typical things that we provide as far as services are file transfer, our viewing of the console of the tool, remotely accessing commands, and HTTP, if there's a web server on the tool, and standard Microsoft RDP. We'll get into those a little bit later in the presentation. So this drills it down even a little further to peel the onion to show you what happens with all this traffic. How can a system that everyone uses remain isolated by company? So in this case, we have, again, the standard infrastructure in the center for the private network. We have the SecureWise server inside of the FAB, and then we have the OEMs on the right. So each OEM's traffic, as I said, is encrypted. So as it goes through the infrastructure, it's encrypted using the client and server authentication, and it's all goes through the basic network. When it connects to the SecureWise server in the FAB, it then basically, after isolating that traffic, then isolates it further to say, okay, OEM 1, which represents the red dots, can only see OEM 1 tools. Even though they're on the same network, there's no way for one supplier to see the data from another. So now we'll talk a little bit about the services that we provide. We have standard FTP. So this uses the standard open protocol called FTP from the SecureWise server to the tool. So it makes it very easy to connect to a tool that already has an FTP server. We basically agree on credentials, ports, and files that can be seen, and we can allow the transfers. An important thing to note when we're talking about there's FTP or HTTP, etc., is that the SecureWise server, as I said before, inspects all of the traffic. And one of the things it does is it checks for viruses. So it's impossible to, let's say, request a file on the tool that happens to have a virus and deliver it to the supplier, or vice versa. In fact, we've had cases in the past where either a supplier or a factory was compromised, but the SecureWise system, because it was in place, ensured that one enterprise did not contaminate another. So now we'll continue on with remote tool operation. This allows you to view the front screen of the tool. Now, an important point here is it's not just my Teams or any other conferencing software. We actually have safety protocols that we have enabled with the tool to make sure that if someone needs to take over the tool, that it's in a safe mode to do that. And that's part of what we call the tool console server package. For legacy applications, for example, if you need to connect to a database, port forwarding service is used to connect to the tool. Many of the newer tools now have web servers, whether that's HTTP or HTTPS. And we, through our special software, can actually expose those web services in a very controlled manner to the supplier or OEM. We also support remote application access. This is kind of twofold capability. One is it provides a secure file transfer through something called secure copy, and it provides the ability to issue discrete commands to the tool. For example, if I want to look at the directory of the file system, or issue a ping, or see how much file space is left on the drive, I can use remote application access to do that. But keep in mind that this is only from an authorized list of commands, by user role. And then we have chat capability between the people in the sessions and the tool operator itself. On the advanced side, we have well, actually, we'll hold off on those. We'll now go into the different applications here. So we have also something called EC proxy. So this provides the ability to, let's say, expose or provide capability from the internal systems within the tool. Many of today's complex tools don't have just one main processor that's exposed on the FAB network. They may have many systems inside of that. Those systems might be for logging, for data analytics, and that information is also valuable both for the FAB and the OEM. So this proxy capability allows that to occur. So what we're kind of focusing right now is things on the tool itself. All right, so key value adds. We have uptime for critical equipment, improve tool performance, avoid customer visits. Obviously very important given the situation today. Machine owners and machine builders remotely collaborate in ways that improve equipment performance at every stage of the process and life cycle, while protecting valuable intellectual property. And obviously, protecting that intellectual property is important for both parties. Many people are just focused on the intellectual property for the FAB. In fact, OEMs have intellectual property also, and that needs to be protected. And we'll kind of circle back a little bit and talk about those added value capabilities. We have high availability server. So in many tier 1 critical environments, the service has become so important to the suppliers and factories that we have a high availability server option. So this basically makes sure that the SecureWISE hardware is completely redundant. That's from drives to processor to even to networks, to make sure that that server is always available. We have a business management portal that allows business managers to review and understand how the system is being used by their technical engineers. I always think of this akin to a call center. If I'm a manager of a call center, I want to know how many calls per hour are being made by a person. How successful are they at winning customers? The business management portal gives you that type of information, but from a service point of view. As you can imagine, connecting to one or a few servers from credential management isn't much of a problem. But when you scale from 5 to 100 servers, credential management becomes a big time sink. So we have our own version of a single sign-on where you can log on to the system and your credentials are good for 12 hours. We also have recently added the capability to interface credential or authentication into either the FAB or the OEM LDAP or ADFS. We also have OEM connector. This is important where if you have an engineer located in the FAB They don't want to degown, go to the office, get technical reference manuals or whatever is needed. They can do everything from within the FAB and connect back to their company's network and set of assets to do their job. One of the most important advanced features we have is the SSEE, or Scheduler Server Enterprise Edition. It allows OEMs to collect big data from every single tool they have deployed worldwide using our service. This can be based on a scheduled time. This can be also based on an interrupt. So if a file shows up on the tool at in this directory, then copy the file back to the OEM. All these things are predefined. So when the events occur, the file transfer happens. No longer do you need to send a note to the tool owner to ask them to collect a file and have it reviewed, and days or weeks later finally shows up in your inbox. Okay, we'll continue here. So just some general benefits of the server. We have, from a semiconductor fab, we have centralized access and control. So as opposed to having multiple systems provided by your suppliers, there's one system, one pane of glass, one place to check, one system to vet, one to keep updated. We have single secure connection to from ServiceNet. So as I said, the data is not available on the internet. Improved MTTR, MTBI, MTBF, because you now have your partner, your supplier, helping manage your equipment to keep it up. Improved production ramp time. This is key in getting production up as quickly as possible. When suppliers have access, they can reduce that time dramatically. And because all data is transferred through our system, it relieves the need for things like USBs, CD-ROMs, floppies, anybody use those anymore? To the tool. So thus minimizes any virus propagation within the factory. On the OEM side, obviously you can provide improved uptime for your customers. Many customers, after they get connected with our platform, create new revenue streams from products that they create that are unique to having connectivity to the equipment. Obviously, reduce travel time and service costs. It's much faster to click and go than to book a ticket and get on a plane. Faster installations to support customer production. You can basically baseline a tool at the factory through SecureWise, get it installed and run those same baseline tests to make sure that everything is operational. And obviously secure access to mission critical data. The amount of data that we've seen over the years, as you can see from the graph, has increased exponentially, and we expect this to grow 10 to 40 times over the next 3 years or so. We do, as I said earlier, we are 27001 certified. We use SYSSS to do penetrations, black box, white box testing for us. Many times fabs will do penetrations tests on our ecosystem, obviously, usually without warning, but we welcome those types of tests. It just makes our system stronger. And, as I mentioned earlier, 100% of the production fabs have used SecureWise today. As you remember, previously the number was 99%. That included production and R&D fabs, but actually 100% of fabs that are running production use our system. Okay, I've kind of already gone through these, but I will just touch on them very briefly here. We have 5 minutes. So see if we missed anything here. Sorry, I know the product so well, I just tend to get ahead of myself a little bit. Oh, another thing I didn't mention here was that everything within the system is audited and recorded. So if a customer needs to find out when a file was transferred, who did it, etc., it's in our system. So this is just talks about the BNC, which is an open source software we use to view the front panel of the tool. As we talked about before, TCS acts as the client and performs the safety interfaces. So HTTPS, we have predefined bookmarks to make it easier for users to find the web pages they're interested on the tool. The web pages themselves are actually stored in the staging area and virus checked, as well as file uploads and downloads. For forwarding, this is actually used to provide RDP access for those Windows customers. And RAA, we discussed about discrete commands. Again, this also provides the ability for secure copy, which is a secure file transfer protocol, and chat. All right, I'm going to go ahead and switch over here to the questions panel. And I see you all have made my job very easy. There are no questions at this point. Does anybody have a question they would like to pose? Okay, I don't see any. If you'd like more information or comments on this webinar, please reach out and contact Kristen Nash at tellit.com or John A. Baglin at tellit.com. Thank you very much for joining us, and everyone have a great evening.